What's a secret you can't tell someone you know but can share with Reddit? Story 1. I sabotaged my father's marriage because he cheated on my mother. When I was 4 years old, my parents divorced because my father had cheated on my mother. Their divorce was really rough, with lots of fights. Eventually, it was settled, and both my mother and father were able to move on. My father married his mistress, whom I'll call E, to respect her privacy. He was very happy with her, and my sister and I gained a stepbrother and 2 stepsisters with whom we got along well. Skip forward 2 years, and E started acting differently, and so did my father. My sister and I often couldn't visit our father because he had to work, though in reality he was free. When we were there, we often weren't allowed to eat at the table, which 7-year-old me didn't understand. Over time, my father became more distant. He stopped wishing me happy birthday and missed many important milestones in my childhood, like learning to ride my bike or school plays. By the time I was 9, my sister and I could only visit 4 days a month and had to sleep in separate rooms. I vividly remember one weekend when I accidentally broke a glass. E became furious, sent me upstairs, and had me take off my socks. A 9-year-old me found this really strange. Then she showed me a piece of glass she was holding and said that it was what I deserved for my clumsiness. She pressed the shard into the sole of my foot. I yelled and cried, trying to pull my leg away when I suddenly felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my father's hand. He was helping E do this. I don't remember what happened after that. E also got into a huge fight with my sister and pulled her by the hair down to the basement. After those 2 incidents and a lot of verbal abuse, we decided to break all contact and tell our mother what had happened. We hadn't told her before because, well, he was our father. My mother knew this was serious abuse, but was too afraid to alert the police since my father had threatened her with violence before. Skip forward another 5 years. I was 14 and a freshman at the same school my former step-siblings attended. Once I saw them, all the memories started rising again. My 2 stepsisters had become huge bullies, and lots of people hated them. A couple of friends and I decided to retaliate and secretly put small bags of powder in their backpacks. Apparently, this caused a huge fight at their home, and my father and E decided to divorce. After that, E got into serious financial trouble, and my father became an alcoholic. 2 weeks ago, he was arrested for assault. E has allegedly become an S-worker, and my former step-siblings have been placed in protective custody. This all feels like my fault. Putting powder in their bags was my idea, even though they hadn't done anything to me. I ruined the lives of my step-siblings and sent my stepmother and father into a downward spiral. Yet, in some sick way, I don't feel any remorse. My sister has been dealing with a severe eating disorder after all the verbal abuse from E and has been hospitalized twice. Now my sister and I are doing better, though we still have traumas. We've thought about starting a lawsuit, but because of our ages during the incidents, legal advisors have advised us to just move on. Anyway, I'm in a real moral dilemma. I did something that caused horrible things, yet I don't feel any remorse. Am I a psychopath? Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I snooped on the CEO's email account and got myself unfired. A couple of years out of college, I worked as an analyst at a small private equity firm. The CEO was one of the biggest assholes I've ever met. Fairly young, in his 40s, a multi-millionaire and completely driven by money with zero business ethics. He would do anything to gain the upper hand in a deal, regardless of who got screwed. Contractors, employees. I even saw him seriously betray a longtime family friend without a shred of remorse. Since it was a really small company, about 20 people in the office, and a bunch working remotely, I ended up taking on more than just my analyst role. Being one of the few semi-tech literate people there, I naturally became the de facto millennial office computer guy. Despite my lack of formal qualifications, I was put in charge of anything minor tech related. Setting up servers, fixing laptop issues, answering questions like, how do I convert this to PDF? Even basic network security. They thought I was some kind of computer genius, but really I was mostly winging it and Googling everything as I went. Eventually, I actually got pretty good at all the tech stuff. They started giving me bigger tasks, like planning all the computer systems for their owned businesses and supervising installs. Of course, I didn't get paid extra for any of it. After a couple of years of serious bullcrap, I was worn out. I wasn't progressing, and I hated working for Captain Douchebag. He treated everyone like crap. I was pulling 12 to 14-hour days with no overtime or performance bonus, and my pay was far below what it should have been. I also hated being the tech guy and was basically depressed, living in a cubicle. I decided I had had enough of the 9 to 8 grind working for assholes. I wanted to start my own consulting business and work for myself. But instead of quitting immediately, I figured it'd be smart to build a client base on the side while still getting a steady paycheck. That's what I did. I launched my company and landed my first clients. As my workload with my side business increased, I started spending more and more time on it while still at my office job. At first, I kept it low-key, but eventually it became pretty blatant. Since it was such a small company, I was the only one who knew how to handle many important tasks and operate key internal systems. That made it easy to tell my boss a project would take a week when I'd actually finish it in 10 minutes. Before long, I was spending about 80% of my day working on my own business from the office. I even took calls for clients at my desk. The rest of the time, I'd usually just waste time on Reddit or something. Of course, the company had systems to monitor network activity, but I was the one responsible for monitoring them. This went on for a while. As my own business grew, I cared less and less about the office job. Since I hated waking up early, I started rolling in late. At first 30 minutes, then an hour. When my boss didn't reprimand me, it became clear just how much they needed me. I took full advantage. Before long, I was arriving around noon, working for a couple of hours, then heading home. My coworkers weren't happy, but I helped them with all their tech problems, and they hated the company too, so they kept quiet. My boss did eventually say something at one point, but I came in on time for a few days, and then went back to arriving whenever I wanted. After more than 2 months of showing up 4 to 5 hours late and working on my side business in full view of my asshole boss, I couldn't believe I hadn't been fired yet. I felt like I deserved it and that it was only a matter of time. On a hunch, I did a little investigative work. As the tech guy, I had full access to the company email server, so I logged into the CEO's personal account and searched for my name. Lo and behold, there was a recent thread between him, my direct boss, and other team members with my name in the subject line. I opened it. They were discussing my performance issues, and the last message basically said, "If nobody has any objections, I will be terminating him at the end of the week." 2 days later. I wasn't surprised, but I decided there was no way I was going to let them fire me. Even though I didn't care about the job, I didn't want a termination on my record, and I wanted to keep getting paid a while longer. I couldn't let them know I knew, so I hatched a plan to pull a little reverse psychology mind trick on the CEO. The next day, one day before they planned to fire me, I requested a meeting with him to discuss my current performance. When we sat down, he asked what I wanted to talk about. I told him, paraphrasing, "Look, I know I've been a crappy employee lately. I'm sure you've noticed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been getting the feeling you guys are planning to let me go soon." The look on his face was priceless. He must have thought I was psychic for figuring it out a day early. I remember him just saying something like, I continued while he sat flabbergasted. "So I'll be honest, my heart isn't in this job anymore. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, which I'm sure you can relate to. I want to start my own company. However, as you're aware, I have a lot of responsibilities here that nobody else can handle." I proceeded to list everything I did and all the projects I was managing. I could see the realization on his face. He understood just how screwed he'd be if I walked out suddenly. "So here's what I propose. You don't fire me. I don't quit. I keep working here for a month, finish my current projects, and train whoever you want on everything I'm in charge of. After that month, I'll continue coming in once a week until it's all complete. After that, if you still need me, you can pay me on an hourly, project-by-project basis." I intentionally mentioned the possibility of quitting so he'd feel like he won the negotiation, even though in reality, I had him by the balls. He paused for a minute, then said something like, "Okay, you have a deal." So not only did I avoid getting fired, I actually turned the company into a paying client. During that month, I continued doing pretty much whatever I wanted while training my replacement as promised. Once the month was up, they started reaching out regularly for remote task work. I charged them triple what I had been making as an employee and barely had to deal with the CEO. Eventually, my client base grew enough that I dropped them for good. Even after all that, the CEO still calls me for advice or questions. Nearly 3 years later, these days I just blow him off with, "Sorry, I'm too busy." Edit. As it seems there's some doubt that this actually happened. It did. Figured I'd clarify a few points. 1. This was a very small company. The office had about 20 people, with several dozen more working remotely. If you've never worked in a small office, it's pretty normal for employees to wear many hats and take on roles outside their original scope. It's also common for such companies to be lax with network security and password management. 2. I didn't become a computer genius and never claimed to be. Though my company of technology illiterate baby boomers sometimes thought of me that way, I came in with decent basic knowledge and learned more over the several years I was there. For anything complicated, wiring, hardware installs, advanced networking, we hired outside IT consultants. I was the one who sourced, hired, supervised them, and learned the systems they implemented, while handling the more basic tasks myself. We're also not talking enterprise-level security here. 3. My consulting business has nothing to do with private equity. For privacy reasons, I'm not going to reveal exactly what I do, but it's in marketing. I didn't take any of my old company's clients when I left, and I don't compete with them. 4. Yes, I'm fully aware and admit I was an asshole, hence posting this in r/confession. I actually decided to start my own company because I hate working for other people without having my own skin in the game. I'm not a great employee when I don't care about what I'm doing. That said, the people running the company were pretty crappy, so I didn't feel too bad about it at the time. The one thing I did have reservations about was snooping through the emails. I don't condone invading someone's privacy like that. However, he had freely given me the passwords to help set up Outlook, forwarding, and so on, and I felt that my firing was inevitable. Story 3. I have a crush on a married man, and I hate it. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and he's in his mid-30s. Before anyone jumps to conclusions, nothing has happened, and nothing will. I respect marriage, and I deeply respect both him and his wife, whom I haven't met. This attraction is purely chemical. It's visceral, not based in reality. I wouldn't want anything to do with him if he ever stepped out of his marriage, and I know that's not in his character anyway. So everyone relax over the title. Nothing will happen, and I'm under no illusions. I just needed to get it off my chest. He's my manager at work. The second I met him, I knew it was going to be an issue. He looked and acted almost exactly like my ex-boyfriend, the only man who's ever broken my heart, just slightly older. Both are extremely tall, thin, and stern. During the interview, I learned he had a wife. He mentioned it while we talked about previous niche jobs we'd both done. I immediately put any thoughts to rest. I was so distracted by how uncanny the similarities in looks and movement were that I didn't think he would hire me. This was a competitive position, so I was shocked when they called to offer me the job. For the next 8 months, I stumbled around him. I'm usually extremely confident in myself and my abilities, but there was something about him that made me crumble inside. Every time we spoke, we discovered more things we had in common. I have an extremely subtle accent, barely distinguishable from the country we're in. He asked about it and mentioned that every serious partner he's ever had was from where I'm from and worked in something related to what I do. I'm in 2 ultra-niche industries. You don't meet people who do what I do every day, so this was genuinely uncanny. At the time, I found it odd, but I didn't think much more of it. The job I do is high-pressure and detail-oriented. Mistakes are easy to make, and managers are there to micromanage. That's just part of it. But I had never had a manager as strict as him. I'm a perfectionist who enjoys focusing on details, yet he constantly pushed me harder. Not in a mentoring way. He spoke to me differently than he spoke to others. His tone was firmer, almost intense. Over time, I began to dislike him because it started to feel personal. At first, he intimidated me, but eventually, I started firing subtle shots back, pointed, but never anything that would warrant an HR complaint. It felt like mental warfare, but this was his world. I couldn't do much. He's very well respected and well connected in our industry, while I'm young and relatively new. There were definitely things he said to subtly put me in my place. I'd be talking casually with a coworker, and he'd call it mindless chatter, then tell us to stop. He didn't do this to anyone else. If I tried to engage in normal workplace conversation, he'd look at me like I was stupid, refuse to reply, or snap, "Is there anything else not work-related you want to ask me about?" and shut it down completely. Once, when I offered to help because he was clearly stressed, he said no, especially not from the likes of you, and walked away. I want to be clear, I'm not as experienced as he is, but I am well liked and respected among my peers. That wasn't a skill issue, it was personal. We both knew it. After that, I basically disengaged completely, and we stopped speaking at work. 2 months ago, I got into a university program that required me to move across the country. The industries I'm in are notoriously difficult to break into, and once you start, walking away isn't really an option unless you want to close the door forever. When I put in my notice, he came over and grilled me about why I was leaving. I explained, and he made small dismissive comments about the program. I had been accepted into a better program but couldn't afford it, so I chose the alternative. He knew this. Our dynamic didn't change much over the next 2 months, but he did soften somewhat. He wasn't as hostile. On my last day at work, he came up to me and told me he had once been on an athletic scholarship at the same school I was going to. But something happened and it was taken away. Then he asked when my program started. When I told him, he said, "Okay, so why aren't you working here until date?" I found it odd since he used to joke about firing me every time I messed up. He then asked, "You don't want to grow up to be just like me?" and laughed. My friend walking by joked, "No, she needs another degree," and he looked at me and said, "Yeah, because that'll fix everything, right?" I replied, "Yep, hope so." He added, "Or you could save a ton of money and skip it and stay here." I asked, "Should I?" And he said, "You should follow your passions. Do you know what yours are?" I said, "No, I don't. Do you?" He laughed and said, "This," and walked away. A little later, I asked him what he had planned to study. It turned out to be the same thing I am. My other managers already knew where I was going and what I was studying, and we had talked about it in front of him before, but he had withheld that information until my last day. When I told him, he said, "Wow, we're pretty much the same person." I assumed he was being sarcastic despite the weird similarities between us, so I said, "I wouldn't say that." He looked at me very sincerely and asked, "How so?" It was the longest conversation we'd had in months, and it felt charged, so I dropped it. I write thank you notes to all my managers when I leave a job, and I had written one for him, giving it to him before I left. I told him I respected how competent he is and how much he cares, because he really does, and I respect him for that. When I gave him the card, I went to give him a fist bump, and he said, "Should we hug?" I laughed and said, "I don't know, should we?" He replied, "Up to you." I said, "Okay, fist bump it is," laughed, then went to hug him. He laughed, hugged me back, and told me to come back and visit. I specifically told everyone not to open their cards in front of me because I get embarrassed. I did this with all my managers, and everyone knows I'm shy, so it wasn't out of character. After I left, my friend texted me, "You cracked him." He said, "Aw, this is so sweet." Almost opened the card, then said, "No, I want to save this for later," and put it in his pocket. That's so out of character for him, and someone who had no idea I have a crush on him went out of their way to text me about it. I can't help but wonder if he felt some weird attraction to me too. I thought he didn't like me at all, and then he seemed to spin out when he found out I was leaving. I have no intention of ever speaking to him again, but I've never had such a strange connection with anyone. It felt like the universe was taunting me from start to finish. If we had met under different circumstances, he might have been something to me, but I'm not sure what. A small part of me hopes I run into him again when I'm older, just to show him I turned out all right. I don't seek anyone's approval, but there was something about him that really got under my skin. It felt like he was constantly underestimating me, and he knew it bothered me. He was playing with it. I don't know. It was all weird. I do wonder what would have happened if we'd met when he was younger. I don't think he would have been so hostile toward me, and I still don't know why he was hostile in the first place. He was one of only 2 people in that entire building who actively didn't like me, and I can't help but wonder why. Story 4. I blocked a star employee from getting a promotion, and it worked out perfectly for me. I got hired into a new company in a middle management role with a small team. I joined right during busy season and was struggling at first. Then I realized I could lean heavily on a star employee who had been there a long time and could handle almost any task. Over time, I settled in, and the role became incredibly hands-off for me. I didn't even read half the emails I got. My star employee would just handle everything. Easiest job I've ever had. I would occasionally thank him or call him my angel, and he just kept handling everything. It turns out he had been slated for my role before some consultants decided to hire externally. I got worried he might get promoted to another role and leave me in the lurch, so I started downplaying how much he did and undermining his credibility behind his back. Meanwhile, he just kept doing more and more work for me. I don't think he ever realized that I was holding him back from at least 2 other promotions. I knew this wouldn't last forever, so about a year in, I started looking for new roles. I found a great opportunity, but there was a catch. The company would claw back my signing bonus if I left before a year, and bonuses and stock options only vested after busy season. Clever! I could have just asked them to push my start date, but since my star employee was running my team anyway, I decided to start the new role without telling my old company I was quitting. I was so nervous I'd get caught, constantly counting down the days until the stock options vested so I could fully focus on the new job. 43 days, 42, 41. But then my star employee quit, and everything fell apart. The work piled up fast, and I honestly have no idea how he ever managed it all. Nearly every project needed his input, and without him, my team couldn't get anything done. The whole department basically froze. Management put me on a PIP almost immediately, pages and pages of tasks they expected me to complete. I panicked at first, until I realized it was a 90-day PIP. My bonus checks hit halfway through, and I never logged into that job again. I still have the work laptop and a printed copy of that PIP. Story 5. This is going to sound insane, but it's true. My identical twin and I both applied to the same elite university. He got in, I didn't. When the acceptance letters arrived, his was sitting open on the counter. I was devastated. Then something snapped. I stole his letter, replaced it with my rejection, sealed it back up, and put it in his room like nothing happened. He was crushed and thought maybe the school had mixed up our applications. I played along and even urged him to apply to another college just to be safe. It gets darker. A few days later, after he left the house, I snuck into his room, found his wallet, and scanned his student ID and driver's license. I used Photoshop to make a near-perfect fake student ID with his name and my photo. We already look identical, so that part wasn't hard. I also redirected his college email to mine so I'd receive all communications. When orientation day came, I went in his place. I showed up pretending to be him, and no one questioned a thing. They scanned the ID, I smiled, and that was it. From that moment on, I started living his life. New friends, new professors, everything under his name. He's now at a decent second-choice school, still convinced the university made some kind of mistake with admissions. Sometimes I catch my reflection and forget who I really am. I've been living this lie for over a year. And the worst part? I'm thriving. I don't want to stop. Story 6. I finally cheated on my wife with 2 different women, and I cannot be happier. 2 decades ago, I had an affair with my then-girlfriend's best friend. It was the best I ever had and left a lasting impression. I hadn't cheated on any of my future partners until 2 days ago. I'm now married. My wife is great, and we have lots of fun. She actually wants more than I do. It's not like I miss intimacy or anything, but I simply cannot stop thinking about being with other women behind her back. So I made a Tinder account. I'd had one before I met my wife but got 0 traction. Recently, I tried again and made it very clear that I only wanted to be involved physically. I got a few matches, but they all flaked out, didn't answer back, unmatched, etc. I was planning to give up, but I decided to write to my matches again, and I told them exactly how I wanted to do it, and that I wanted to write now. I was very explicit. One of them answered right away and told me to come right away. I took an Uber and went there. My heart was pumping like I had just ran a marathon. Let's just say that her Tinder pictures were putting her in a better light than she was. On Tinder, she looked about average, but in real life, she was not so pretty. A 2 out of 10 at best, and she lived in a dump. Yet I went along. I was absolutely planning to delete Tinder after I left. I ordered another Uber and got in the car. Then another Tinder notification popped up. It was from one of my other matches who had, in the meantime, seen my message. Guess what? She wanted me right away. It hadn't even been 10 minutes since I met the last girl. Not 10 minutes since I swore to myself that I was going to delete Tinder, and here I was with another woman, and I was ready to go right then and there. I went home to clean up and changed my clothes, disgusted by the first woman's apartment, then got into an Uber and went to the second woman. The idea that I was going to be with 2 in the same day made me feel more alive than I can remember. When I arrived, she was truly a 9 out of 10, just like my wife, charming, playful, needy, excited, and a total tease. Absolutely welcoming. She didn't just want to do it, she wanted to have fun, and she knew how to have fun, and fun we had. It happened twice, and it felt deeply fulfilling, not just physically, but emotionally. There was a warmth in my soul, a sense that I had discovered something I hadn't even known was missing. After that, I deleted Tinder, and I don't plan to cheat again in the short or medium term. I feel like I got what I needed, maybe in a few more years. Story 7. This was back in, let me think, maybe 1997. I was 38, and my daughter was 18. She was dating Harry, who was 24. At the time, I was an alcoholic and occasionally used other drugs. I wasn't a good person, certainly not a good mother. I wasn't abusive, but I was inattentive and cared more about alcohol and drugs than my daughter, especially during her teenage years. I've been sober for 14 years now. I disapproved of her dating Harry, though I never told her why. He flirted with me constantly, and the age difference made me uncomfortable. On top of that, he was an alcoholic and drug user, just like I was. She eventually broke up with him because of his drinking. Not long after, she moved out, still nearby, but no longer living with me. Harry started calling, asking if I wanted to go out for drinks. I turned him down a few times until one day he mentioned he had a lot of cocaine. I couldn't resist. He came over, we smoked, and we ended up doing it. He was a very attractive guy. He actually looked a lot like that over-the-top 80s-style Justin Bieber photo that was on the front page today. That's what made me think of him. For the next few months, maybe 3 or 4, Harry would sometimes come over, and we'd do it, smoke and get drunk together. Then I got pregnant. I knew it was his. We'd been careless a few times and didn't use protection. I never told him. I got an abortion and kept it secret from everyone. After that, I stopped seeing him. It was too strange. I managed to stay sober for about 4 months before relapsing. Fast forward 2 years, my daughter contacted me to say she had gotten back together with Harry and that he was now completely sober. I was horrified. I was sure he'd tell her what happened between us and that she'd hate me forever. When they came over to visit one day, Harry waited until my daughter was out of the room and told me there was no reason to ever mention what had happened. I agreed. It's been 16 years of marriage for them. Now, they have a child together. Harry got cancer, then beat it. I got sober. That's basically the whole story. I don't see them very often. They live in Texas and I'm on the East Coast, but whenever I do, there's always that tension between Harry and me. It's not sexual. It's more like a silent, mutual "why did we do that? What the hell was wrong with us?" kind of tension. I can tell it crosses both our minds the moment we see each other. I think about it often, especially when I see my grandson. I can't help but imagine that if things had gone differently, he could have been my son. But honestly, what a disaster that would have been if I decided to keep that child. Story 8. When I was 12 or 13, I spent thousands on stolen credit cards online. I was young and into the computer gaming and hacking scene. I used RayTS, remote access tools, keyloggers, DDoS attacks, all sorts of crap on random people online. I got into it after meeting a guy on Minecraft who was about 16 or 17 and basically walked me through how to do it. It started with cons to steal people's Minecraft accounts that had high-tier ranks on servers I played. Ranks worth $200 or more. I'd find someone gullible enough to believe I had a program that could get them any rank or kit they wanted. To do it, they had to give me their account password, email, and email password, and then I would just take the account. There was no real hacking involved, it was pure con artist work. If someone was skeptical, I'd invite a customer into the call to vouch for me, usually a buddy who was in on it, and that would usually seal the deal. The one I feel worst about and will never forget involved a kid who couldn't have been older than 12. He had a $650 rank on a server, and I'd been eyeing his account for a while. I finally got him into a call, did my song and dance, and took his account. A day or two later, we were in another call on Skype, and he was bawling his eyes out. I could hear his dad losing his friggin' mind in the background, verbally berating his son. I ended up giving the account back, but the worst part is, it wasn't because I felt bad. My buddy had guilted me into it. I had been refusing until he said we wouldn't be friends if I kept saying no. After that, I tricked someone on a Minecraft server into downloading my rat. Some chubby kid from Singapore or something. I kept messing with him, turned his camera on, and recorded his reaction. He got so scared he called the police to his house, but I had already keylogged his computer and stolen every account he had. I also took his parents' credit card information and used it to buy numerous $300 ranks across various Minecraft accounts. I posted a video of it on YouTube and even linked it in the Minecraft server forum for everyone to see. The last part of this confession is arguably the worst. This is where I graduated from ratting people and conning them out of accounts to straight-up credit card theft and use. I had a list of over 150 Minecraft accounts that I had either conned or stolen through a cracker program someone sent me. There used to be a website called albarac.com that posted daily lists of credit card dumps, names, addresses, card numbers, zip codes, everything you needed to make a purchase. The list was public and first come, first served. Usually the cards would get flagged and locked by the banks after one purchase, so you had one shot and had to act fast. I ended up getting each of my 150 accounts a $500 rank on this one Minecraft server. The server's store had a top donor roll that displayed the name and lifetime amount of whoever spent the most. One day, I couldn't find any usable cards on Albarac, so I went through my old ones to see if any had been unlocked. There was one, and for some reason it never got locked again. I literally spent $19,000 on that one person's credit card over the span of 2 days. I was buying my friends' ranks, selling ranks for in-game items, buying kits, anything available, and anything I needed. Next thing I knew, the top donor roll inevitably showed that account's name. The server owners, being sharp, realized something was wrong when they saw how much had been spent, and I'm sure chargebacks had started to roll in. When I finally got busted and banned, I went full chaos on that card. I ranked every account I could find on the server list to the most expensive tier, the $500 rank, bought as many kits as possible, and essentially tried to make it a nightmare for the admin staff to clean up, who had each rank before, what their previous rank had been, how they'd reclaim items bought under other people's names, how many refunds they'd have to process. I went scorched earth. I want to be clear, I wasn't some brilliant anonymous hacker. I was stupid. I never used an IP changer on my PC the whole time. My computer was junk. I was only 12 or 13 and playing Minecraft, so I couldn't even run Skype on it simultaneously. This was pre-Discord when Skype was what we all used. I ran Skype on my phone, and in a laughable attempt to hide my IP in calls, I put the IP changer on my phone, not the computer where I was doing the illegal stuff. I have no idea how I wasn't caught sooner. Every time someone knocked on my parents' door for months after, I assumed it was the police and that I was done for. That is my confession. I am 27 now. Story 9. I lied about having my university degree, and it got me a great job. I went to an Ivy League university in Ontario, Canada, right after high school. My marks weren't great, but they were good enough to get me in. I spent most of my time partying rather than studying, but I still managed to pass all my first-year classes. In my second year, I skipped a lot of classes and was very lazy with coursework. My marks suffered, and I failed a couple of courses. By my third year, about halfway through, I dropped out and got a job in landscaping. I did that for a year before realizing it really sucked and regretting not trying harder in school. I figured I could apply for jobs that normally required the degree I would have earned. I had enough time in university to make the timeline on my resume believable, and even though I hadn't graduated, I still had a decent knowledge of the field. The field I was trying to enter is tough to break into, and it took a few months of sending out applications before I landed an interview. The company that called me back, my now current employer, is internationally recognized in the energy sector. I was honestly shocked to get the interview. One of the documentation requirements was university transcripts. With an hour or two in Photoshop, I created proof of graduation. I submitted the documents along with the other required information and never heard anything questioning my records. I went through 3 interviews and ended up receiving a position. I've now been with this company for almost 5 years. They provided all the necessary job training and nobody has ever questioned my education. I started with a salary of 72,500 Canadian dollars and have received annual raises. When I was hired, I was told that management was very impressed with me during the process and that they usually only consider applicants with at least a master's degree. During the interview and training, I was basically terrified every day, but now I rarely think about it. I never told my university friends that I faked my degree. The only people who know are my parents. Story 10. I'll never admit this out loud to anyone in my real life, but I regret marrying someone from a different culture and ethnicity. I feel ashamed even writing it, but it's the truth. The hardest part is his own self-hatred. Over time, I've realized he didn't really choose me for who I am, but because I'm white, he has said many times that he'd never marry someone of his own ethnicity. I was only 21 when we met, and I didn't fully understand what that meant. Having kids changed everything. There's no romance anymore. Physical intimacy maybe happens once every 2 months, and I can feel he's forcing himself. His energy and attention go entirely to our children. No gifts, no surprises. He even forgot my birthday this year. Maybe that's not cultural, but I do feel that in his country being the devoted father is almost glorified, like that becomes the whole identity of a man after having kids. And then there are his parents. If I started writing about how condescending, toxic, and controlling they became after the baby, it would take hours. They are obsessed with our children. Some of it is cultural. Some of it is just them being awful people. They constantly pressure him. I've overheard his mom say at least 20 times, "His eyes are too small. Thank God the grandkids have beautiful eyes just like her." It made me sick. I don't regret him as the father of my kids. He's wonderful with them, even if he's anxious about the smallest things. He does his best and I still love him. But the cultural differences, his obsession with race, and his self-hatred weigh heavily on me. I love our children more than anything, but sometimes I feel sad for them because of the way he talks. One time, I don't even remember how the topic came up. I said something like, "People might see our kids as Asian," and he replied, "Yes, and you know that for most people here, looking Asian is a bad thing. It's not something to be proud of." That crushed me. It stayed in my head for days, and I couldn't stop thinking about it when I looked at my kids. I've never seen them that way, never thought of them that way. The very thought alone tortured me. On the outside, we look like a beautiful family, bilingual, blending 2 cultures, with good jobs and a stable life. But inside, I'm not happy anymore. His issues are dragging me down. I've lost confidence. I've stopped trying to comfort him. It feels like a lost cause. Nothing is ever good enough, never perfect enough, and he will never be satisfied. Only our kids bring me joy and keep me going, and I do my best to make them happy. Story 11. I, a 34-year-old man, house sit for other people with the specific goal of going through their things. I've been a house sitter and dog watcher for a number of years. It's genuinely easy money, and I'm very good at what I do. Chances are your home will be cleaner than when you left for your vacation or work trip. I'll collect your mail and organize it by the date it was delivered, wash all my towels and bed sheets, never have guests over, and so on. However, unknown to you and everyone who has ever let me house sit, I go through people's things, specifically their clothes. I open and go through every closet and drawer. Dresses, suits, bathing suits, sweaters, pants, skirts, underwear, scarves, jackets, hosiery, hats. If you own it, I'll look at it. If something really catches my eye or excites me, I'll try it on. I'll stand in front of your mirror to see how it fits and wear it around the house to see how it feels. I have a particular fondness for the belongings of married women. Yes, the thrill is in doing something I'm not supposed to, and the possibility of getting caught in your sexiest outfit. But mainly, if you thought it was nice enough to buy and wear, I want to see why. When I'm done, I fold it back up or hang it exactly how I found it. You never know. How do I know? Because you've asked me to house sit again and again. It started back in high school. My friends would have a party, and when everyone was outside, I'd go upstairs and see what their moms had tucked away, then try it on to see how I looked, fold it back and put it away like nothing happened. Later, when I started house sitting, I discovered I could have free reign without having to sneak around. I'm sure this all sounds incredibly creepy and like a serious breach of trust. I'm not looking for advice, just wanted to get it off my chest. Looking back, it does feel wrong, and I regret it now. Story 12. I, a 35-year-old woman, cheated on my husband Alex, who is 37. It started with my coworker Dan. We worked overnight at a warehouse and shared the same manager position, so we spent a lot of time together talking while on the job. Eventually, we started spending time together outside of work, still just talking. I'm a very blunt person, and one day I came in frustrated after not being intimate in weeks. I was just working, but Dan seemed to know me well enough to ask what was wrong. I told him I was in the mood, and half-jokingly said I should just do it with him. He said he had been waiting for me to say that and would happily oblige. For the next couple of weeks, we still didn't do anything. Meanwhile, I still wasn't getting any at home. Alex tried, but in my opinion, morning breath at 5 in the evening is disgusting and an immediate turnoff. Hygiene is extremely important to me. While he was never perfect, when we first got together, he at least smelled decent. Now, he can go weeks without brushing his teeth and days between showers. I've told him this is a huge turnoff, but he'd rather sit on the game than wash. Anyway, one day after work, Dan and I were sitting in our cars talking like we normally did. We ended up getting a little close, and it felt amazing. The next day, it went up to a blowy. From there, it progressed quickly. For months, we were meeting 4 to 5 times a week, before work or leaving early to meet at hotels. We even developed a system so no one at work would suspect anything. If we ended up being late, we would come in half an hour to an hour apart and ask each other what happened and why the other was late. We also staggered when leaving work. On slow days, when everyone was sent home early, we would just leave and meet at our usual spot. No one suspected anything, since we lived close to each other, and it made sense that we were driving the same way. I admit I loved every second of it, because it was the best I've ever had. Even when I was on my cycle, we still met up to talk or watch videos. It's strange because Dan learned my cycle within a couple of months, whereas Alex still doesn't know it after more than 15 years together. I did end things with Dan. From the beginning, we both agreed to leave feelings out of it, but I caught feelings. We're both married, and I didn't mind risking my family. I didn't have much to lose. I paid all the bills, took care of the kids and house, and covered most of our date nights, even though Alex made 3 times as much as I did. But Dan had more to lose, and he started talking about a future with me. When I realized his feelings were serious, I put in my notice at work. Only the people who needed to know were informed. On my last day, Dan said he wanted to sit and talk with me, but he had to get home because he was tired and had things to do. I told him I'd see him later, and never went back. If I'm being honest, I miss him so much. Different movies and songs remind me of him. There are certain things I want to talk to him about that I can't talk about with Alex. Alex only talks about games, DBZ, and the lottery. Don't get me wrong, I'm a gamer and love anime too. But there's more to life than Call of Duty and Dragon Ball. I want to talk about the new Assassin's Creed coming out, or Gintama and One Piece for a change. Can we discuss how the government is against everyone, not just one race? I'm black, by the way. Can we have one meaningful conversation? I truly miss Dan, and after 6 months of no contact, I realized I might actually love him. I just needed to get this off my chest because mourning a loss alone is hard. And even though Alex has cheated on me multiple times over the years, if he found out about this, he'd probably hurt himself. I know some people will ask why I'm still with Alex if I don't love him. The answer is pity. He struggles to even pay his car note, and I know he'd never survive on his own. He doesn't pay bills, doesn't clean, and doesn't cook. But I'm getting to the point where I don't care anymore. He'll either sink or swim. If anyone asks what he spends his money on, the answer is whatever he wants, not what our family needs. Pool sticks, new games, his car, shoes, going to the bar, anything for himself and his hobbies. Not clothes or shoes for the kids, not bills, not takeout for the family, just himself. Story 13. My friend is famous, and I participate in their snark pages. I feel like the creepy mom from that Catfish Netflix documentary. I'm in too deep. We're not close friends, but we're on good terms and have only had positive interactions. When we first became friends, I knew they were well known, but it didn't affect how we interacted. I thought they were cool, we had things in common, and their fame felt like just a part of their job. They are married, and our relationship is completely platonic. Over the past X months, there's been a lot of drama and controversy surrounding them. They never mentioned it to me, so I was shocked when I found out online like everyone else. I reached out to check in, and they explained their side and said they were getting a lot of hate. I gave them my full support because that was all I knew. But when I looked at their social media to show public support, I didn't see any hate comments. Why delete comments if you're innocent? Things weren't adding up. This led me to Reddit. I'd always had an account but never thought to look them up, so I made an anonymous alt. What I found truly shook me. Internet sleuths had uncovered mountains of evidence suggesting my friend is a liar, along with countless other negative things. There were literally hundreds of thousands of posts disproving everything I'd been told. At first, I engaged with the snark to get clarity. What I'd heard directly from them was so different from what people were discussing online. I was in denial, even arguing with commenters who were criticizing my friend. But eventually, I began to see things clearly. My friend was the villain in this story. Now I can't stop reading and engaging with the snark. Multiple times a day I check for updates. I'm addicted. People keep uncovering information that directly contradicts what I'm being told to my face in real time. No one knows what I know, yet somehow it turns out I don't actually know the truth at all. Redditors post insanely mean comments, and I egg them on, agreeing and adding fuel to the fire. It's not a rush from engaging in the bullying. It feels like justice is being served in a sick, Dexter-like way. I feel like a complete idiot for believing my friend who painted themselves as a victim when that's clearly BS. I have no personal reason to cut them off, and letting them know I'm aware of the lies would come completely out of left field. So I smile to their face and post supportive comments with my main account while stabbing them in the back with my alt. Story 14. I tried shooting my shot and might have ended up doing one of the worst things I've ever done. Just to be clear, I have this really bad social issue where sometimes I say things without thinking, and they come out all wrong. But anyway, there was this really cool girl I was interested in. We weren't close friends, but we would talk and send Snapchats to each other occasionally. There were a few times when I thought she was giving me hints that she was interested, and at one point she sent a text that I interpreted as flirtatious. Big mistake. I started showing the same energy, but during the conversation I got the sense she was playing hard to get, so I backed off and we moved on. Later that night we called each other. My goal was to ask if she liked me, but I made the horribly stupid mistake of being too blunt, saying things straight out without thinking about how they'd come across. Specifically, I told her that I found her attractive and wanted to take things further, but then realized that didn't feel right since I barely knew her. So I asked if she'd be interested in hanging out sometime. Unsurprisingly, she was completely shocked by the random confession and told me she was actually interested in someone else at the moment. I calmly accepted it, thinking for some reason that we could at least stay friends or remain cool with each other. The funny thing is, I wasn't drunk or high at all, yet for some reason my brain didn't register how bad and weird what I just said was. After the call, she explained that my words had been very strange, and I agreed. We talked it through, and I apologized for saying those things so bluntly and making her uncomfortable. She forgave me, and we kind of moved on. A day later, I became sick thinking about what I said and how she might view me now. I wanted to apologize more and explain myself, but I felt that would just make things worse. I asked if she felt comfortable talking to me, and she said she wanted space, which I completely understood. I just hope I never get into situations like that again or make anyone feel uncomfortable. Story 15. I broke up with my boyfriend because he yelled at me. I'm a 29-year-old woman. He and I dated for about 8 months. Overall, our relationship was fine. We did things together, had fun, and there weren't any obvious red flags. Still, I often felt like he didn't really value me. At times, he seemed cold or annoyed with me for no reason. Everything came to a head 3 days ago when we were hanging out at my place. He asked me to hand him the TV remote. I was sitting right next to him on the couch, working on my laptop. Without looking, I accidentally handed him my phone instead. At first, I thought it was funny and laughed as I handed him the actual remote, but he had that same annoyed look on his face, and then he started yelling at me, calling me a stupid bitch. I was stunned. I had never raised my voice at him or disrespected him in any way. I did not deserve to be treated like that. I told him our relationship was over and asked him to leave. He told me to calm down and stop overreacting. I simply walked to the front door, opened it wide, and told him to get out and never come back. He walked out, calling me dramatic. The very next day, I returned the presents he had given me. They meant nothing to me now. My friends are telling me that I overreacted and that I shouldn't have ended the relationship over one incident, and they've suggested I try to patch things up. Even his friends began harassing me on social media, so I blocked them all. I'm not going to reach out to him to work things out, as some have suggested. I know I do not deserve this treatment. I've always treated him with respect and I deserve the same in return. Story 16. My partner and I got together in freshman year of high school. We had a few breakups along the way, but ended up staying together through all of high school. After we graduated, we moved in together and started planning our future. He worked while I stayed home, and about a year later, we got pregnant. I was happy, and everything felt like a dream. Yes, we had normal problems, but I couldn't complain. I felt so blessed to stay home with our daughter and be with such an amazing partner. Then, around December last year, he found out he would have to start working an hour away, which meant he wouldn't be able to see us as much. We managed for a while, but it was hard. We barely saw him. The baby was usually asleep by the time he got home, and we were both exhausted. He had to drive an hour each way, work 10-10, and often work weekends. We looked into moving closer and even toured a place we loved but couldn't pull the trigger yet. Then May came around. One night, at the end of May, he didn't come home, and I started freaking out. This led me to believe he had a drinking problem. He wouldn't come home at all, or he'd barely text me until the next morning with some excuse about drinking. Well, long story short, the drinking continued. He kept not coming home. His words said one thing, but his actions said something completely different. I started to suspect he was seeing someone else. He wasn't coming home to me or our daughter, literally maybe twice a week before leaving for work, aside from his day off. I asked him repeatedly if there was someone else, if he was unhappy, what was going on. He would just say no, that he loved me, and ask why I didn't trust him, that it was just work. He had never given me a reason not to trust him in the 6 years we'd been together. Not once. But I couldn't ignore my gut feeling. My intuition was screaming at me. I knew it was more than just drinking. I knew someone else had his attention. It was strange because he didn't seem different toward me, but I could feel the disconnect. One day, I noticed he was following a girl. I asked him who she was, and he said, "Oh, you don't know her. It's this guy I work with's sister." I told him I thought it was weird that he was following her, and he just said, "Okay, that should have been a red flag." But in the moment, I told myself I trusted him. A couple of weeks went by and my gut feeling only got worse. I really thought he was cheating, so I went through his phone and found nothing. So of course I started thinking, okay, maybe I'm going crazy. But his patterns didn't change. He still wasn't coming home most nights. He wouldn't answer my calls or texts. His location would show him sitting in the parking lot across the street for hours, and then he'd come home around 4 a.m. I knew he was cheating, but he denied. One day in July, I was talking to my sister and said, "You know what would be crazy? If he was adding and unadding her so I wouldn't see." She told me, "No, that would be insane. There's no way." A couple of days later, on his day off, I woke up around 5 a.m. and just thought, I have to go through his phone and add her. So I did. And when I tell you my jaw hit the floor, when I tell you it felt like I was being stabbed over and over, I mean it. I was so in shock I honestly thought I might die. The last messages were him saying, "Good night, I love you, I have to unadd you, but I'll add you back tomorrow, my love, see you tomorrow." And she replied, "It's okay, I love you, see you tomorrow." Above that were saved chats and texts from earlier that day, him calling her babe, telling her to come to the kitchen, sending her TikToks, and at the very top, a saved message from the first night he didn't come home, an address, hers. I immediately sent pictures of the messages to his mom, saved them, and even made one of them his lock screen. I also posted it on his Snapchat story. I was in complete shock. When I put his phone back, he woke up and didn't say a word. I went into the other room, shaking and bawling my eyes out, and I'm pretty sure he went back to sleep. Elmfow. Morning comes, and he still has nothing to say. I asked him if he was leaving me for her. He said no. I asked, "But you love her?" He said, "Not like that." I said, "Just damn, you're really gonna leave your family for this girl? What's going on? I can forgive and forget." In the moment, I didn't care what happened. I just wanted my family together. All he could say was, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know." He didn't know why he did it, didn't know if he was going to stop talking to her, didn't know what he wanted. Yeah. He tells me he wants to work things out, but he can't promise he's going to stop drinking or change his habits. He says he loves us and wants his family, but he's lost right now. So of course he never stops talking to her. I begged over and over. Then he finds out he's going to start working in town again around July, August. Naturally, he continues to talk to her, work with her, and be around her because he knows he has a timeline. He tells me, "Let's just see what happens when I get back." He doesn't want me to move out. He leads me on. July turns to August. They keep him until the last minute. On July 30, he's supposed to be in town for his first day and has 4 days off before returning to work. Yay, right? No, he doesn't come home at all. Nobody hears from him. On the 31st, same thing, except he tells his mom he'll be home later. He never shows. And guess what happens next? He didn't come home the next day either, or the day after that. So on the 2nd, I packed all of my things and our kids' things and moved into my mom's place. The next day, he texts me, asking if he can have the baby. Not a word about us moving out. Come to find out, he had taken this girl to Mexico, flew back from Texas without telling anyone, and spent the day drinking and doing whatever he wanted. Everything still feels so unresolved, obviously. It's been about a month, and he hasn't said a word to me about anything. I feel deeply betrayed. It hasn't gotten any easier, honestly. And guess what? He's going to Mexico in a couple of days to be with his new girlfriend. Send me healing advice, please. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.